I want to call the meeting to order. Can you take a roll call, please?
Colwell. Jennings.
Present.
Lamb. Lawson. Maxwell. Maxwell.
Here.
McCann. McKnight.
Here.
Priest.
Here.
Prophet.
Next item on the agenda is to approve the April 4th minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look over the April 4 minutes?
Yes. Make a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
Second the motion.
Let's just take a verbal. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on, we have the approval of the April 12th special PRAB meeting minutes for the Kessler Mountain Trails Master Plan. Has everyone had a chance to review those? And if so, are there any questions?
Make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes.
Second.
Let's take a verbal. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. We have an Eagle Scout project at Walker Disc Golf Improvements from Spencer, Maine. Is Spencer here? All right, step up to the podium. Thank you.
All right. Hi, I'm Spencer Maine, and I'm from Troop 116, and I am proposing an Eagle Scout project at Walker Park Disc Golf Course. So here's a map of the course. It's also called Waxhaws. So I am going to be working on holes 14, 15, and 16. Yes. So circled are the areas that I plan to be working on. All right. So the first part of the project would be building a bridge to replace this old one that is there currently, and that's a high water flow area, so it would require a bridge and then a raised walkway out of mulch around it, connecting holes 15 and 16, because right now there's not a great way to get around there. And then this is prototype raised walkway, which will be similar to what I'm building on the rest of the course. So this is on hole 14, and it's also a high water flow area, and I will be replacing the natural wood on the side with utility poles to make it more sturdy, and since it's one of the longest ones for this project, and this is one of the worst areas by the hole. As you can see, the trench with water, and this was a really sunny day, so there's a lot of water that goes through there. So this would be a very wide raised tread with pipes underneath to let water go through, so it'd be easy to walk around the hole when it's wet. This is another one of the spots at the beginning of hole 14. So we would build a raised tread there as well to help water flow through, and you can see by all the dirt, that's the part that the water's washed out. So that would be kind of a long, narrow one like the other one on hole 14. And then build another raised walkway at the start of hole 15. So the water flows down diagonally, and you can see kind of the tire tracks. That would be about where it follows. So kind of the same thing. And then this is at the toward the middle of the hole of 16. So two of the waterways diverge and go right through the middle of this. So it gets quite muddy there too. So as far as time frame and materials, if everything goes according to plan with city and Scout District approval, I would like to start on May 28th and finish around June 25th. For materials, utility poles, utility pole cross arms, those are going to be donated by SWEPCO, and the mulch is provided by the city. Other materials that I would need to seek donations from a building supply store would be rebar, drainage pipe, river rock, 2x6s for the frame and decking of the bridge, and screws for the bridge. All right. Do you have any questions?
Did you outgrow your uniform?
It's been a busy afternoon.
Yeah, I figured. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Have you talked with any of the folks with the Disc Golf Association?
Yes, I have. Ray and Ben, I talked with them, and they're the ones who have done the prototype raised tread, and they figured out that's the thing that works the best.
Right. But I know they put a lot of work into it, and they'd want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to be involved with them. Super.
Any other questions? Great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry. Let's call a vote on,
I make a motion we accept this.
Second.
let's do a verbal. Everyone in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Parkland Dedication Ordinance. Mr. Kit Williams, City Attorney.
Thank you. I was asked by Connie, who I think relayed a request from this board to try to further explain maybe the Parkland Dedication Ordinance and the law related to that about when a developer is offering land in lieu of money. I guess there was a question about, well, do we have to accept that if assuming the land is good for park purposes, not bad land, that would be unsuitable. Why do we have to take it if we think we don't need it right there and we would rather have the money to put into another park? You all might be aware that at one point, when the Parkland Ordinance was first established, it was established a long, long time ago before they had a regular impact fee statute. And the statute that was used, which was similar to an impact fee statute without all the requirements, said that when a proposed subdivision does not provide an area or areas for a community or a public facility, then the regulations may provide for a reasonable dedication of land for such public or community facilities or a reasonable equivalent contribution in lieu of the dedication of land, and such contribution to be used for to obtain those facilities. So this was what was used by the Fayetteville Board of Directors a long time ago. And for a while then that was in effect, and then a landowner sued and said this is illegal and unconstitutional. And our local judge agreed and said in fact it was unconstitutional. So the city appealed to the Arkansas Supreme Court. And the Arkansas Supreme Court didn't actually directly address the constitutional problem, but they said that it was in fact illegal. And one of the reasons that they said, and in my opinion, I think if the proposed subdivision does provide an area for the park, it is questionable that the statute that I read to you, which said when it doesn't provide an area, could be required to donate money or to pay the parkland fees if they were already requiring the area that the statute called for. And what bothered the Supreme Court was that the city of Fayetteville, up to that point in time, had always demanded money from the developers. And this is what the Supreme Court said, and I quote, IBI, that's who sued us, could not have offered any land, presumably anywhere, in the required fractional acreage that would have been accepted by the city. No land has been accepted from any developer. Only contributions of money are acceptable. And they said that was illegal. And so our statute at that point was illegal. It came back, it was readopted, it was changed, and the revisions of the Parkland Ordinance and the way it reads right now resolved that problem by clearly requiring an appropriate parkland dedication offered by the developer to be accepted by the city. And this is what the city council has passed, and of course we're all required to follow the ordinances of the city. And in our Unified Development Code, it says, if a developer proposes to dedicate land for a public park, which the Planning Commission determines is suitable for park purposes, the proposed dedication shall be accepted. It must be accepted. Now, this is reinforced because about 10 years ago, the Arkansas legislature decided to pass an impact fee statute, which was actually a very, very broad statute. And we passed the police impact fee and the fire impact fee ordinances pursuant to that statute, which we couldn't have before that was done. And so, you know, actually it was nice for the legislature to give us that power. However, they required an extensive study before any impact fee would be allowed. And I called up the two sponsors of that, Senator Bisbee and Representative Ledbetter from Little Rock, and said, we have a long-established parkland ordinance that we would like to get grandfathered in because we don't want to have to go through one of these really long, difficult, and expensive studies in order to have an impact fee. And Senator Bisbee, who had come down to our city and spoken against our water and sewer impact fees when they were being proposed, was a little bit skeptical, but I said, our impact fee statute gives the developer the absolute right to dedicate proper land for a park, so he doesn't have to pay money if he is dedicating proper parkland. And so they wrote a special provision into the law that grandfathered in any city that had a parkland ordinance over 10 years old that gave the developer the exclusive right to dedicate land rather than pay money was grandfathered in, and we wouldn't have to do a parkland study. So we wouldn't have to go back and spend the money for that and to enact a new parkland ordinance. And so this is what the rule is. It has to be proper land. For example, when I was on the city council back in the 90s, one developer wanted to dedicate as parkland a big swath of land right underneath a high-power easement with high-power lines over there. And obviously, we went out and looked at this is not appropriate parkland, so we do not have to take it. So it has to be land that is somewhat appropriate for parkland. It can be bottomlands where we could put a trail or something like that. And it can be other sorts of land, but it has to be at least usable for park space. And so we do have some options, but if it is usable for park space, then at that point in time, according to both the state law and also our own city code, it must be accepted, even if we would prefer to get money. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't give money or we can't ask them to give money. It also doesn't mean that when they come before you and make a presentation, you don't have to agree with them. I can tell you, though, that if you don't agree with them and they then go to the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission doesn't have that option. If it is appropriate land, then the Planning Commission must accept it. The only way to avoid that kind of situation would be if the City Council decided they wanted to spend the money and take the risk for how much parkland we would get by doing a new parkland impact fee study and then adopt a new parkland impact fee, which they could do. However, we might receive less than what we're receiving now, and of course the study itself would be fairly expensive, and it would be money that the City Council would have to come up with. I think our previous studies, if I remember right, have been $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and of course that's a number of years ago, so who knows how much the quote experts would charge us now to do an impact fee study for parks. But that's the situation. Right now the City Council has decided to go forward and to preserve the parkland ordinance by keeping this absolute right for a developer to offer appropriate land for parkland, and if it is offered in the appropriate amount, then the city must accept that. Now, does anybody have any questions about that? And I can also say this is, Wade probably remembers this, this has been up before the Parks Department a few times and the Commission, and because it's difficult, you know, sometimes you think, well, gosh, we really need that money, we don't want the parkland. And, so I have to come back and say, well, as long as the ordinance says what it says and the state law says what it says, we're gonna have to accept the land if it's good land.
Kent, with that said, we heard the outcome of our decision a few months ago, I believe it was, maybe last month, to not take parkland not take land when actually the park staff had recommended that we do. And do you know where that is, Connie? Or I know that went back to, I guess that would have gone to.
That has not been submitted to planning for development review yet.
Okay.
We're keeping an eye on it.
Okay.
We're still trying to work to make it acceptable parkland and work with the developer to improve the access to it.
Yeah.
And I think eventually something will probably be worked out, and that's usually how we try to use all these things. The one time that I told you about when I was on city council, we just said no because it was obviously inappropriate land. Otherwise, we're going to look at it very carefully and maybe require something of the developer to make it more acceptable as parkland. So that's, I think that's what we're looking at right now, trying to work something out with them to tie it to other parkland and to make it accessible, because that was, I guess, pretty steep to go down to. And, you know, we look at everything and we don't want to get land that's useless.
We thought so too.
The other aspect that we looked at was the invasive species that was there. And it's fully covered with honeysuckle. And when the city is trying to eradicate bush honeysuckle, I mean, that's one of the sustainability actions that's currently, planned in process, is why do we want to accept that into and as parkland dedication and put the burden again back on the city to rectify an issue that shouldn't be, why do we want to incorporate that into something and incur the cost to deal with invasive species?
And that's another issue that Parks has been working on with the landowner, because obviously that's a problem. I have some land that used to be just wonderful parkland until now you can hardly walk through it because of the bush honeysuckle, which is just ravaging this area, and it's I don't know where it's going to stop. I'd like to see how we can get rid of it. It is very difficult to remove.
So from this point forward, there's not going to be an option for money in lieu of land. It's going to have, if it's acceptable parkland, that will be the way that it moves forward for any new developments. Is that correct?
And that's been the way really for 20 years. They've still brought stuff before the Parks Board for your input. And, it's not so black and white, because sometimes land is not good parkland. There can be many reasons for it, but then some land which actually is not developable is still good parkland for, like, around the creek, so we can build trails and stuff on that. But we do look at other things, and that's one of the other issues, the bush honeysuckle that's been on that, and we would rather have the developer at least make an effort to get that part taken care of before it becomes our burden, because obviously it is very difficult to control that stuff.
I don't think that was really, we weren't really looking at it from a standpoint of the money. It was, this isn't suitable. This doesn't fit into, true access for the community, one, and two, it's closed down to bush honeysuckle 8 months out of the year, pretty much. And that doesn't really equate, and it's a gully. I think the topography and what's being offered with that specific site was, for us, we looked at it and said it's not suitable for, public. It's not appropriate for us to accept that for, as public donation. There's property up above it that's beautiful, and that they're planning to use for POA. There's appropriate property there and available.
Well, that's why we're still talking with them, and they haven't gotten anything finally submitted. And it does mean, of course, it's Planning Commission's decision, but they'll listen to your recommendation, obviously, on whether it is suitable for park purposes. That's what the ordinance says, suitable for park purposes. And so if the land is truly unsuitable and can't be made suitable by the owner, then that's something we don't have to accept according to our ordinance, and hopefully that would still be in compliance with the state statute. I would certainly make the argument that it is, that it would be unfair to our citizens to have to accept unsuitable land, that they need to provide land that would be usable as park purposes.
So provided it's suitable land, that it's going to default now to, it's going to be, the land will be donated as opposed to money in lieu, is that correct?
Not necessarily. Many times the developer would rather give you money. And in
Okay.
fact, during the real go-go days, it was, we had probably undervalued the value of land, and so every developer was just saying, please take money, please take money. They didn't want to give property. And in fact, when I was on the council, I actually had an ordinance passed for neighborhood parks, because we were getting very large subdivisions coming in with well over 100 houses and no park whatsoever. And I felt like a little small park where people could just walk to it, didn't require any parking, but was still having, you know, a couple acres, 2.5 acres of just trees and maybe some benches would be desirable, and more desirable than the money they wanted to pay us, because they wanted to cram a house on every lot. And so times change, and a lot of it depends on the value we have placed upon the land and whether that's really the fair market value or not. And if it gets out of whack, then you'll see all money or you'll see all land, depending on, you know, how that works out. And it's different in different areas of the town too, because some areas of town the land is worth more than other areas, and so development in those areas are more likely to one to money and the other to land.
So exactly what's changed from previously, or is this, there's no change that's been undertaken here recently with respect to this?
No, this has been the law for a long time, at least since the impact fee statute. But even before that, this was the code, and so nothing really has changed. Sometimes things change in that. Like maybe now, I don't know if they're always offering land or not, but you know, like I said in the past, very rarely would they ever offer land.
Okay, thank you.
On the front end, when we're visiting with developers, that's why we have a criteria for accepting suitable parkland and land for trail corridors. And I think that allowing the developers to see what our criteria is on the front end helps us in the long end to get that suitable property that we need. So we appreciate when the developers do work with us, because it helps their development and it helps our city parks department too.
Any other questions?
Well, thanks for having me here, and anytime you have further questions about this or whatever that has to do with legal stuff, please let me know, and I'll be happy to come back and talk with you.
All right, thank you very much. I guess that gets to a Appleseed's master plan proposal. Mary Thompson.
Hi, I'm Mary Thompson from Appleseeds. I'm back again tonight to show you the work that we have done on the master plan for the park property in Gully Park. We came to the public hearing for Gully Park and listened to people's comments. We've talked to the Friends of Gully Park and their comments and taken their main objectives and incorporated it into the plan. One of those was the height of the fence. So if you're looking at this plan, this is oriented with north on the left side and south on the right side. So if you look at the southern end, that's the part that faces the main part of the rest of Gully Park. And the fence around this part, which is required in the lease for us to have a fence, we're trying to keep it a 4-foot height and put a temporary fence up so that we can really try to keep that fence low and see what kind of troubles we might have with deer or people or any of these things coming in. So we're going to try that first and only do a higher deer fence in this back corner of the park. This is the northern end, so you'll see where the garden rows are on the left side. And around that part, we're proposing a deer fence just in that back corner. So that's where the production rows would go. And then as we progress more towards the southern end, we would become more open and more visible and really enhance the park by having beautiful features. One section would have the fruit tree orchard that would be visible to the rest of the park and accessible during the hours that we're there, normal working hours. And at the front entry, we would have garden space that would help merge with the functions happening in Gully Park. So it could be either picked by the community, or we would have pumpkin patches that we could incorporate into events happening in the park, or melon patches to incorporate with the concert series, a way to really address the park and all of the people in the park and merge what we're doing with what's happening in the park. And then in the center, we hope to have a pavilion space. You can see oh, thank you. Yeah, right in the middle, right there, a shade space. So that would be in the very center, a roof and columns, basically, so that there's a shade structure for participants who are out there. And that's largely the main features on the plan. It's different types of gardens, raised garden beds, wheelchair access garden beds, and production garden rows, a berry patch, fruit tree orchard, and flower gardens, just to beautify and enhance the whole feeling of the space. Are there any questions?
I've got some comments. I'm not opposed to the organization or what you're doing, but I've had people approach me about this concern about the way that this has come about. And let me just kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these facts, but when we purchased the addition 10 acres for Gully Park, the cost was $1.1 million. One house was sold for $111,000. That house, by the way, is an offer I think has been made for $190,000 already on that house. So that was probably sold a little cheap, a little quick. The other house that Appleseeds has acquired was bought for $200,000. The land that they're looking at here, it's using the scale of the 40-foot scale that's on the bottom of this, is about, is a conservative guess, about 2.3 acres. The addition to the park was 10 acres. So this is removing 2.3 acres from that 10 acres. The $156,000 was raised from private funds to help make this purchase. And then after the sale of these homes, and that obviously lowers the cost on the land, but there has been an addition to this of the northeast corner, which I'm glad to see that, because that was kind of leaving a corner stuck off there that was not being utilized. My question is, how do the existing people that own land next to this feel about this? Your existing site too. I know the owner has contributed about $250,000 in improvements to that land with a barn, tractors, tillers, greenhouse, and a 9-foot high fence. I was told that by the Game and Fish Commission, there's never been a deer known to go over an 8-foot high fence, so that's why he built it 9 feet high. And that's my understanding, he's giving to your group to be able to use no charge. Also, in the area, a lot of the schools have gardens as well, and I'd like to think that the kids would be able to walk to this from Root, from Butterfield, from Vandergrift, from McNair. They could easily probably walk to that site, and most times I see that as a positive, and hopefully you wouldn't have to use the buses for those schools to get kids there. But another concern is we're going to be looking at, I assume, hoops, white or plastic hoops for cactus greenhouses on the property. Also, is my understanding, does your program, the schools have to pay for this program, is that right?
Currently, well, we have several programs. We try to offer them at no cost when they're funded by grants. Other times, there's a small fee.
And I understand that some of the schools are not able to offer this program because they can't afford the program. So this isn't a program that's completely open for all the schools to use. And I look at the land around the schools. There's a lot of land around, well, all the schools have a lot of land around them that could potentially, I'm thinking these garden spots could be expanded, and if the gardening is done on the school site, that gives the kids more of a way to be involved in the weeding, the gardening, the planting, the harvesting on site, right outside their window without having to travel to the garden. But I see the better spot for this would be a spot like Combs Park. And the reason why is there's a lot more land down there. And I know you're normally raising beds and making the soil better for growing crops and so forth, but down there at Combs Park, there's good topsoil, because I know we've pulled topsoil out of there for other park uses. Also, you'd have access to the White River for irrigation, which is going to be a big, important part of this. Also, you'd have more room to put a larger orchard in, and just more space down there. But that's just a thought I had. But those are some of my concerns I have about this. I think it's wonderful educating the children about gardening and eating healthy snacks, and especially with the obesity issues that we have. But the other thing, too, is that's a 20-year lease. It's a very long time. I regret what we did with the Botanical Garden at Lake Fayetteville. The reason I say that is because the whole south side of that lake will probably eventually, those hardwoods will be ripped out to make ways for more fields and more parking lots. That's in their long-term master plan. And my concern as time goes by that this will be taking up more and more of the screen space. And no, I'm not opposed to the gardening. I think it's wonderful. But those are just some thoughts I wanted to share. And I've been thinking about this for nights, thinking about this. But I like the concept, but I think there's probably I think you've got a good situation where you are right now, and I'd like to see the program. It'd be nice if you brought it to the schools, but I know you have your own way of doing things and what works best for you, and I understand that. And that's all I have.
Would you like for me to address some of the concerns that you brought up?
Feel free.
So where we are currently right now is a very generous donation from an individual in the community. It's for a 5-year contract. We're in year 3, so it was never forever. So being an organization that needs to be sustainable and independent, we had a certain amount of time to figure out how to do that, and partnering with the city is a really great way to have a longer term commitment and sustainability for a farm that we can then operate at a larger scale to reach more students. We support school gardens 100%. We help schools start their gardens. We offer workshops to teachers so that they can improve their efficiency, help them reach the kids with lessons. But in reality, the teachers have a lot on their plates, and to add a garden that can add significant impact to the kids, all of the kids in those schools, is really challenging for them to do. And we found that by having our own farm where we can invite the kids out, where every kid can harvest something that day, is not something they're offered in their own gardens. And to have a fully staffed field trip that's integrating their curriculum and teaching components each step of the way is something that is beyond what the teachers have in their normal classroom outline. So we're able to reinforce the school gardens at their schools and help those teachers use the gardens to some capacity, but when they're out here on this property, they're able to have everything they need to cook with. They're able to harvest ingredients for a whole recipe and make it with their class, as well as learn nutrition education from our staff who does nothing except nutrition education. And that is why we found it so important to have our own site, as well as we're growing food that goes back to Fayetteville Public Schools. So the onions we're growing goes back to the schools and ends up in all the cafeterias. So we're contributing in that way, as well as helping the students start their own farmers markets at their schools. So the food that we're growing goes back to these schools, and that's at no fee as well. So all of this food that we're growing is being given back to the citizens of Fayetteville. It's being taken to the schools.
But they have to pay a fee to use your program.
Well, so this is how we have 4 different programs. One program, there is a fee for the students to go, unless we get sponsors. Lots of times we get sponsors and it's offered for free. Most of our programming is free. Our workshops for the teachers are free. Right now our field trips are free because it's funded by a grant. And we have one program for cooking class where there is a fee, but we have local businesses that have sponsored almost every single one of those, so the kids are not paying a fee currently. So we are trying to make it free and accessible. we do outreach at schools, which is free. We have lots of services that are completely free of charge. That is very important to us, that we can let all of the kids have access to our programs. As far as plastic coverings, there is a rectangle over here by the row crops. That right there, yes, that would be a high tunnel. Eventually, that's where the plastic covering would be. We placed it in the back corner so that it would not be immediately visible from the park. That would have plastic covering. But the rest of the edges we're putting careful thought into so that it's trees, so it's beautifying the park and really adding an element to the park and not taking away from that. Did I hit on most of the points, or is there something else that you had?
How many events do you think annually you would be having at this property?
We currently hold 2 fundraiser events annually, one in the fall and one in the summer.
And then how many people would be at these events, do you think?
About 125 people at our farm dinner, and our picnic has around 250 to 300 people.
And where do the people park when they come?
That will be in the Gully Park parking lots. We would schedule it as an event with the parks, just as anybody else would having an event, and get it okayed through them first.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Connie. What's the current parking spaces available at Gully Park? And the reason I'm asking this is because I went by there this past weekend, and it was completely full. People were parking in the grass and everywhere else. And I'm just envisioning an event there that doesn't have adequate parking, so.
You know, we'll schedule it according to other events, whatever program that they might have. Do know it's happening at all of our parks. They're being loved to death. People are going there, and you know, there's no way we can always provide parking for everyone that wants to come to the park. If we did, we wouldn't have any green space left. It'd all be parking lots. So we have to kind of rely on the community around it, the neighborhood, to allow cars to be parked. One of our biggest problems is the fact that nobody wants to walk into, they want the closest. They'll park on any grass area. They'll jump any curb needed to get a convenient parking spot for them.
That shouldn't be our problem.
That's right.
They need to walk. You know, the other thing too we've talked about that we've not done yet is we can put parallel parking on Township facing west, and that the road's plenty wide enough. We would do that for Gully Park, for the Calpay runs in the past. And that way people would not have to cross Township. But facing west on the north side of Township, yes, you're going to have the drivers getting out, but the road is quite wide enough to do that. Maybe adjust their line over more to the south to allow for parallel parking. And of course, we've got tremendous parking, great partners with the 2 churches there. The Church of Christ on Loire Road and then there's 2 churches across from the house that Appleseed's had, and then the Baptist church there on, I think it's Baptist church there on Township. Yeah. And I assume we still have good relations with them as far as being able to use their parking lots.
I believe so.
Okay. I think what we're doing in the past is we agreed to clear the snow off their parking lots in exchange.
Old Loire Church of Christ, we do.
Okay.
We certainly do. And, you know, we as park staff see this as part of our mission in building active and healthy communities. And what a better way than to show people how to build a garden and for people to have the opportunity to actually see it grown. If they go there every day, they're going to see how things are growing. And, you know, maybe they'll get the interest to do their own garden, and the resources will be readily available there that they can go and ask staff help on how can I do this. But I think also for the children, I think it's a real initiative for children to see how things are growing. It's amazing. I know just at our kids' crop garden area that we have at the Yvonne Richardson Community Center, kids had no idea where many vegetables came from or how they got them. They just knew they got them out of the bag, you know. They didn't have any idea how they grew. So I think there's a lot of learning there. And it's part of Feed Fayetteville. You know, I think we're all looking to help each other to be able to be healthy.
Hey, Mary. How many days out of the year have kids been at the farm, and how many kids do y'all touch in a year's time, and what do y'all expect your growth to be with this property?
Well, how many days out of the year? So it's very seasonal right now. It's primarily in the fall and the spring when the kids are in school. And then in the summer, we will start a summer camp in which we can reach kids through the summer as well. And once we do have a high tunnel, then we can start expanding our programs further into the season. Right now, we reach around 4,000 students a year. We anticipate to grow that each year by about 25 to 30%.
But currently, how many days out of a year are kids physically at the farm?
I have not counted the days where they're physically at the farm. So we have field trips where the kids come to the farm, but we also take the produce grown at the farm and take it to the school. So we're supporting them that way too. But I don't have off the top of my head the number of days that they've been out there.
You know, one good thing about the program is the fact that it'll be during the school day. Most of our parking problems is on weekend and on evenings when people are off work. I think that is the bulk of our problems with parking. So just going to add that.
Hey, Connie, this question is for you. What's the terms of the lease?
I know it is a 20-year lease. They have from, I'm trying to think, from March to October, is that what? That they're open one day a week to, that's Saturdays.
Saturdays to the public.
To the
free,
public.
no charge.
Yeah. And also that they conduct 3 workshops a year for us.
Any other questions? Any motions?
Are we here to motion? I mean, is it just approve it? Okay.
Yes, a motion to approve their master plan.
Make a motion to approve the Appleseeds master plan proposal as presented by Mary Thompson.
Second the motion.
Let's do a roll call vote for this, please.
Caldwell? Yes. Jennings?
Yes.
Lawson? Maxwell?
Yes.
McCann?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Priest?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes. All right, moving on. We have the Mazanek Memorial Art Donation. Allison Mazanek.
I'm not Allison. My name is Alex Cogbill, and I'm a local sculptor. I own Local Color Studio Gallery down the road here on Block, and I'm doing the sculpture for the memorial. So I can probably answer more of the questions than Allison will be able to anyways. The piece itself is for her father, Ron, and it's going to propose to go by the Lindsay Pavilion and the Mount Sequoia Trail System. He spent a lot of time out there, and it was a really important area to him, so it seemed apropos. This is the piece that's proposed. The scale is 9 foot tall. It's a little under 3 foot wide at the very bottom, and it gets a little bit thinner as it goes up. The corners are all rounded, so there's no sharp points or anything as far as for public. this is the sculpture base detail. This was designed by Paul Timko, who is a structural engineer in Little Rock, Arkansas. I worked with him on a piece that I did on Main Street in Little Rock. This was designed for a piece that was much heavier and more wind prone, designed to have people potentially crawling on it or any number of factors. So it would be more than adequate for this sculpture. The desired site, number one, would be where this large stump is at, which I feel would be something that would be removed anyways. It is up on, I think there should be another picture maybe of the same site. No, it's just all three sites. But you can see the rock that goes up there. It's like that on the other side. So it's a little bit above the sidewalk and set back. So those other two are the number 2 and 3 sites as well. Yeah. So it is set up off of the curb on the other side of the rock. So you will be looking up at it, which will add to the idea of this memorial piece. It does have a blue tone, a bluish gray tone. The piece kind of looked gray there. It was just for the shaping. It does have a little of a blue tone to it. Is there any questions?
What is the sculpture made out of?
It's steel, welded
It's steel?
Yes, sir. The blue is a dye, and it will have a patina that goes under that, and then over it has a really nice clear coat that is designed for sculpture use, and it's a 15-year clear coat. So the maintenance will only require me to go out there about once or twice a year through the seasons, make sure it's clean, and then after the 15 years, I might have to do some minimal hand spraying. I won't have to get it done again. I'll have the clear coat done by a body shop, so it would be professionally clear coated.
I noticed at the base of the sculpture you have lockable pin on there.
Right.
What's the thought process behind
So what I did in Little Rock, and that's what that was. What we did was I just drilled a hole. There's a sleeve that goes into the concrete, and then the piece has a pipe that goes down into that sleeve. So I'll be working with the parks on what the outside diameter and inside diameters need to be on that sleeve, and I'd like to work with them too on the exact, where the pad and everything is going to go. But then I drilled a hole through there, added just a basic pin through it, and on that one I just put a machinist lock, so it has a bolt that goes through it, and then the end is just damaged, so you can't take the bolt off.
Okay. That was my concern. If there's a lockable pin, it can be unlocked and
yes, you'll be able to cut it and take it off if you needed to with a grinding wheel. It just makes it inaccessible for somebody to do that who's not out there with a tool and electricity and things.
Good, thank you.
Will this be sturdy enough to withstand, typical acts of, vandalism?
Yes. The clear coat is very nice for that. I will be able to polish or anything as far as that. As far as pushing it or anything like that, you're not going to be able to heave it over. It's going to be very sturdy.
And so the city's going to have the stump removal and we'll put in the concrete pad?
Yes, sir. The pad is under it would be about the same as pouring one of the concrete for a sidewalk slab. So it's.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, this has gone through is this the first step in the approval process for the public art?
It is. This is valued at under $5,000, which is the amount that kicks it into Arts Council approval. So we'll probably take it to them as an informational item, but it does not require their official approval.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I make a motion that we accept the Mazanek Memorial Art donation.
Second.
Let's do a verbal on this one. Everyone who approves, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on. Parkland dedication, Miss Allison Jeffers.
All right, we have a single-family development proposed tonight. It's called Rupel Meadows. Engineer is Craft and Toll Associates. Owner is River Oaks Partners. It's north of Weddington and just west of Rupel, northwest park quadrant. They're proposing 67 single-family homes on about 16 acres. Their land dedication requirement would be 1.64 acres. Money in lieu is $61,640. There are several parks in this service area, including Bryce Davis, Red Oak Park, Dale Clark Park, also the Hamstring Creek Trail Corridor. The developer is requesting to dedicate money in lieu, and staff is also requesting that due to the fact of the existing parks in the area. I would also like to note that this is within the Weddington Corridor Master Plan that the city did several years ago. It's being developed under its current zoning, so the plan is there for reference. If a developer were coming in and rezoning this property, then we would look at what the master plan was showing. But because they are developing it under its existing zoning, that plan doesn't come into play as much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Allison, what is the exact street north of Weddington where this development intersects?
Can you flip down to this?
Yeah, where your cursor was.
Congressional, yeah, is on the right.
How
It
many?
would be directly across it, so that goes into the links. So Weddington is the main street on the south. Rupel is the main north-south. Would you have someone here from Craft and Toll if you have any specific questions about the development?
Just the links right there.
It's right behind the across from storage shed.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
The link.
It's all forest right now. What's the estimated time frame on clearing this land that's there currently right now?
Do you mind answering that?
Yeah, I currently don't have that answer for you. I could find out and get that to you. My name is Ronald Watkins, by the way, representing Craft and Toll. I was a project engineer for this development.
Allison, can we go back to the map previously? That one, thank you. How would the residents access Bryce Davis Park?
Through the links, the sidewalk connections.
Okay.
Has there ever been an issue with that? I mean, Coach, I assume everybody there, the links is using that too.
Mm-hmm. There's actually signage within the links that directs people back to the park.
I just haven't been to that spot.
Ronald, what size homes and what's the orientation of the home? Will it be, or is that decided yet?
Could you repeat that, please?
What size homes and what type of construction will they be? Will they be bungalow or zero lot line, or what are you looking at? Or has it been decided yet?
They're going to be in the north west, that corner, I guess lots 1 through 14, that's zone RSF 8. Those homes there are going to be roughly 1,900 square feet. The homes along the outside edges are going to be roughly 3,400 square feet, two-story homes, and then everything inside, those are going to be duplexes, so single-family duplexes.
I motion that we approve and take money in lieu of.
Second.
Let's do a verbal. Everyone who approves, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Watkins.
Thank you.
I got a question for you, real quick. I don't think we've seen too many developments where we've got, this is an interesting contrast, where you've got duplexes and then across the road, 3,000 square foot houses. Have we seen anything like this in Fayetteville before? That's interesting. I think it's good. It'd be interesting to see. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Regional Park Update. Allison?
Well, park is, going well. If you've been out there recently, you'll start to see stonework on the buildings. Roofs are going up, the dugouts are built, much of the sod has been laid. Most of the paving is complete around the baseball complex. Still have a little bit more work to do around the soccer complex. And we'll be getting ready to put in the final turf grass on the soccer fields in the next few weeks. And as always, if anybody wants to go out, just let us know. We'll be happy to take you.
Are we still on schedule for soccer beginning in September?
Late August.
Late August?
Mhm.
Okay, great.
You ask that
Thank
every
you.
time.
I'm just making sure.
Somebody does. She's always
All right, any other updates or questions for Allison? All right, moving on. Kessler Master Plan update. Ken?
Since the board reviewed on April the 12th, we've made application to the City Council for review. It's going to be heard tomorrow night in this room at starting at 4:30. We are pretty far forward on the agenda, so if any of the board would like to come and sit in with council at that public presentation, then we'd be happy to have you there as well. Any questions?
I guess not. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yes, thank you. All right, any other business? If not, then we will, go ahead, yes.
The council meeting's actually at 5:30.
The what is?
The council meeting tomorrow night is at 5:30.
Okay,
Starts at 5:30.
in here. All right, thank you, Allison. Any other business? Moving on. Announcements, May 2nd, registration begins for swim lessons. May 3rd, Kessler Mountain Master Trails Plan approval by City Council at 5:30 in this room. May 9th, registration begins for fall soccer. Also May 9th, the Youth Fast Pitch Games begin. May 14th, Square to Square Bike Ride. And that starts in Bentonville, or starts here and ends in Bentonville? Ends in Bentonville, okay. Will there be mass transit back from Bentonville? Okay, all right, thank you. May 16th, registration begins for summer kickball. May 22nd, Ladies Do Fayetteville event. May 26th, Gully Park Concert number 1. And also May 26th, End of Spring Adult Softball Tournament.
Chairman, I might ask that Tiffany Galkey, our event coordinator, come up, and we do have a skills course on tab for this Saturday for a clinic. Let her tell you about that, and just give you a quick update about Square to Square and the Ladies Duet. So, would you want to come up and just give them a brief update? Numbers of people, it's pretty good.
All right, as County mentioned, this Saturday, May 7th, we have a mountain bike skills clinic starting at 9 o'clock out at Lake Fayetteville, North Shore. It's open to anyone, but kind of geared towards younger riders. We're doing that as a partnership with NICA. May 14th is a Square to Square bike ride. We still need some volunteers for that, so if you and your friends and family aren't going to participate, we could definitely put you to work helping to put on the event. But again, it'll start in Fayetteville. You can start between 8 o'clock and 10:30. When you register, you'll choose a start time, and then you'll bike up to Bentonville, and there'll be shuttles available to get you back to Fayetteville. May 22nd, which is a Sunday, is the Ladies Do Fayetteville Duathlon. Right now, we also need volunteers for that event. It starts at 8 o'clock and will be staged out of Veterans Memorial Park. It's run 2 miles, bike 11 miles, run 2 miles. Currently we have 145 ladies registered for the do,
And I believe Square to Square registration is up to around 530 right now. So, hope for some good weather and some good attendance numbers.
What was the attendance number for the Square to Square last fall?
723?
So at this point, it looks like we'll most likely beat that.
I hope so.
Okay.
How are you gonna get the bikes back? Just throw them in a pickup truck?
The shuttles are able to accommodate people and bicycles. We've
Like-
got 2 school buses from the Boys and Girls Club, and then 3 or 4 buses from Ozark Regional Transit.
So just put the bikes on the bus, just wheel them to the back of the bus, sort of thing?
Hmm.
Is there a schedule listed somewhere of the mass transit?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it's on our website. The shuttles after the ride will be going at 1, 2, 3, and 4 o'clock.
1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, thank you.
What do we need to do as far as who to contact for volunteering for that?
I'm sorry.
Who do we need to contact for volunteer?
Myself.
Okay.
Yep. The volunteer descriptions are listed on the givepulse.com website, so you could find each event there and sign up for whichever shift you might be interested in. Otherwise, just email me and let me know what you might want to help with, and we can fit you into whatever is of most interest to you for helping. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. All right, any other business? Connie? All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.